Hi there, my name is David Batshoven and I host a travel show called Travel and Things. And at the moment, sort of tailing down towards the end of the year, believe it or not, Travel and Things likes traveling with books, real, proper books with words written by people who sit on suitcases that are the same color as my beard. And she's in England, Kate Emmerson is at the moment. And we say, hello, Kate. How are
Hello,
you?
David. I can always count on you for a fabulous intro.
The last time you and I had a threesome on this in conversation with your writing partner, with Sarah. But now you've done this all alone, and it's Quick Shift Publishing. Is this a new imprint that you've started up?
Yes, I actually started that imprint 3 years ago when I published Shift Your Home. So I
Okay.
wanted to self-publish it. I created Quick Shift Publishing, and then Sarah and I have it as a hybrid publishing kind of little arm that we keep on the
Mm.
side when we pull out every now and then. And so I published it under that imprint.
Okay, so this book is called 10 Lessons for Living #Location Free, an insider's guide to living and working anywhere and everywhere. So my first question is, you're not alone in this book. You've chosen people to take who've done a similar journey to yours. Firstly, how did you choose them?
Mhm.
And can you work anywhere and everywhere?
Okay, so those are two very different questions. So I think one of the things for me was all my other books had, most of my books had client stories in, and I always find
Mm.
other voices just a different perspective, different opinion, different idea, come from a different angle, different culture, different sex, all of that. So when I was planning this book, I realized that I didn't just want it to be a diatribe of my own musings about what I've been up to or the lessons from 5 years. And I thought, how can I include other people? So I was doing it definitely from the reader's perspective, going, wouldn't it be nice if they could hear from men, women, all different countries, all different vocations and jobs? Because I know, I'm an author and a speaker, and run retreats, but what about other people who are
Mm.
artists or VAs or web developers or, all these different professions? So I'm just trying to get the numbers. About half of them I know personally and know their
Right.
journeys. And then what I did was last year in Malaga, when I spent the winter in Malaga, and I started writing the book. So I was 4 years into my journey. I had a big writing community there at the time. And I started asking, going, who do you know that's been doing this journey that would be fabulous for my book? And the prerequisite was they had to be over 40. That was the cutoff because I was
Mm.
47 when I started this journey. I didn't want it for millennials or for, kids backpacking around. And they had to have been doing this for more than a year, because it wasn't, if it's under a year, maybe 6 months, it can be more of a holiday
Mm.
mode or a little bit of a, what's it when we take a sabbatical
Right.
rather than a lifestyle. So I chose people, and then I chatted and interviewed them to make sure that they were, that was right and that's
Yeah.
what they had been doing, so that I got the right perspective. So that was the first part. What was the second part?
Who knows?
What was the second
I,
part, David? That's hysterical.
I don't remember. Who remembers these things? This is, this is
I
the
normally
people I'm
do.
in conversation with. You know what? One or both of us will come up with the answer in a little while, and then we'll revert
Exactly.
to that. Because my next question, and I think I was thinking ahead, was you gave up three things in order to do this. You gave up a relationship, you gave up a house or an apartment here, and you gave up. And this for me was so sore. And I mean, even as I talk to you, I'm getting
I know,
emotional.
David.
You
I
had,
know.
I've gone ice cold because I don't
Stop
know
it.
how
My cat.
your cat. So
Yeah, I know.
which was the most difficult? And how did you process and deal with that, with those three things when you made the decision? Because
Yeah,
originally you were only going to do it for a year and then it turned into 5
yeah,
and you're still away.
yeah. Sure. So, okay. So let's start with the animals. So,
Okay.
so I have traveled most of my life, and I have been one of those people that have taken on other people's animals
Mm.
and have passed on animals to other people. I wouldn't say I've had a sanctuary for animals, but at any given time, I mean, I've had 6 to 8 animals. So I also know when I am the recipient of someone's animal that needs a home, actually how quickly they can adjust and how within 24 hours they feel like mine.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget one such beautiful staffy called Oscar. He came to live with me for a year. And then I was going through a move, and I remember phoning the dad back and saying, I have a funny feeling you're going back to your farm. I said, and I need to move to the Cape. Is there any chance Oscar can come back to you? He said, Kate, how did you know? He said, we just found out today we're going back to the farm. So like Oscar came to me like a foster child for a year and then went back to his original dad. So I've always had that energy of flow of animals in and out, and it is heart wrenching every time.
Yeah.
You know, my first animal that I got, I was 10 years old. It was a Siamese cat. I asked my granny for a cat for my birthday. And when I was 12, that cat, we moved to Durban from Amanzimtoti. And I came home from boarding school to be told that my pussycat, Asia D, had been mauled and left on the front carpet of our home, like outside, you know, the carpet. And at 12, I remember I spent my entire Easter holiday just crying and mourning for this cat. So I've come up with a philosophy where I love, and I love deeply, David. And I also know that things can also come and go. It is one of the hardest things to process. And in fact, I think it's often harder to process animals than people, because people we can still have conversations with. And, and in fact, my ex-partners had 2 dogs when I met him, a beautiful Labrador Jay and a Chow Amber. And also, like, you know, I longed for those dogs when I was off traveling, because I haven't had a dog of my own probably for 10 years, actually, when I left Cape Town. Oh, so the animals is hard. And actually, that's why on the cover there is a pussycat like on that chair, because cats for me, like, I think my first love is cats, and just underneath it are dogs. Like, they're so close. But it's like when I travel, I often find Stripey, who is my cat, who is still alive, who is now living with Megan Barber and her parents. Like, Stripey will come and visit me through other cats. Like, I absolutely, when I'm down or low or missing people or him or animals or just, I don't know, a different kind of life, a pussycat will march up to me, normally that looks exactly like Stripey, and will just come and give me a love, and I can give it a love. So Stripey was really hard. Stripey is also a very interesting beast because he is very loved by many people. And actually, the bigger challenge was, who did I ask? Because so many people wanted him. And because I'd been traveling for so long for work, many people had met and stayed with Stripey. And he is one of those cats that goes into your heart. So it was a question of who is going to actually zap Stripey,
did you have an auction?
You know, well, not quite. I went to kind of the home where I knew there were the most bodies, and he would have a cat friend. So that was Stripey. The home was easy because I was renting, and I had already decided that I wanted to be living in another country. I wanted this a different kind of life. And it was a rented apartment, and that was the lightning bulb moment where they said, we're not staying here anymore. That bit was easy. You know, I'm a minimalist, you know, out of suitcase. That was easy. Within 24 hours, I knew what I was giving up and what I was keeping. And the harder part actually of that was books. So I had a beautiful bookshelf, and I literally kept 4 books, and all the rest were either passed on or sold or gifted, specific books to specific people. Even books that had been gifted to me by authors that I know, I took a snapshot of the cover and their inscription, and I blessed them and passed them on. Very hard, actually, books.
Right.
And then my partner, well, we were still involved up until a year ago. So I didn't give up my partnership. He always knew when I met him that I was going to be traveling and looking to live in another country. The night I met him, actually, at a salsa party, I told him that. I said, I'm probably not going to be here within a year. And there was elements of that actually made our relationship work for the time that it did. It was that I would come and go, and he would come to me, or I would go to him. So that's a long answer to your question.
No, it's exactly the answer to my question. So if you started out as a year project, basically, what has changed it into 5? And you're not done yet, are you?
No, I'm not done yet. 1 year went by like that, you know. So when you go somewhere, so for 2 years before, I had been traveling at least for 6 months of the year for work, YPO, speaking, retreats. So I knew that rhythm of coming and going. But 1 year, it was so much fun. And, you know, running retreats in Greece. I mean, I traveled to America, I think twice that year, Dubai, Saudi Arabia. I mean, I couldn't believe a year had passed, and it was just simple. I was not done. And also, it wasn't like I said, that's where I know I want to go and set up my next base or nest or home or whatever you want to call it. So it was like that place between the two. Also, what happened was when I started Location Free, I had this idea that America was on my radar and I was thinking about emigrating there. So I went a few times. I think I did a total of 7 trips to go and feel it out and go and see,
Right.
and then the last trip I went for 3 months to go and, so I wasn't working there, but I would go and live there and house sit and be there and just feel the country. So I hadn't pinpointed anywhere. I thought it was America. And then 3 years ago, I realized it wasn't America for me. And one of the reasons was because it would take a lot of money and effort to get visa and immigrate and get there. And I know I'm not a one home kind of girl.
Right.
So I want to be able to come and go. So my idea is 2 homes, not one, whatever that means, whether I rent one out or Airbnb it or whatever, the business side of it. But I realized I didn't want to spend all that energy and effort going to one country and then knowing that maybe in a year I might want a second home. So it just stopped feeling appropriate for me. And so I just kept going, and it's just has now, it literally, I don't know where time has gone, David. And again, for 4 of those years, I would come to South Africa 3 to 4 times a year at least, come to see my partner, always there for Valentine's Day, our birthdays, most of the festive season, not all of them. I'd have friends and family and business, not family in South Africa anymore. I would come to South Africa. The rhythm of my year was determined by my work, but it's flown by. And I think that was the thing when I started writing in Malaga. I was like, oh my God, it's been 4 years already.
Yeah.
And now here we are. Well, this year has just zoomed by, as we know. So here we are 5 years down the line, and it needed to come out now for myself, looking at this journey retrospectively, kind of marking a transition point in the chapter. So single now, South Africa absolutely no longer home. I've put in my last tax return. So just also changing my residential and tax status. Because that's one of the questions people say, oh, so you're just like, you don't want to pay tax or your business is bad. I'm like, no, I've always been very legal and very above board. I'm not one of those girls looking not to pay tax. But now that's all transitioning to the Northern Hemisphere. So I'm in that kind of process of closing down South Africa, opening up the UK.
But 2020 must have been a really weird decade for you, because, I mean, listening to the way you traveled pre that, it was literally wake up, if it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium type of thing. But now for 2020, much like I've been a non-traveling travel writer, you've been a non-traveling speaker and person who likes to be all over the place, sort of a butterfly, if you will.
Well, I also have the ability to kind of close things down and go within and go quiet. I do that at certain times, like essential times in my business. And I was already going to be doing that. Yes, there were retreats that we had booked. So we had Italy, Spain, Greece, which of course have all been shifted to next year. So that was the loss in terms of those countries and that income, which was the major part of my income. So that had to change, of course, like the rest of the world. But actually, I have still managed to have some kind of a rhythm. So I started the year in Malaga. I came to my mum in the UK, then went to South Africa to launch book 4, the Write Your Book. And then when so my kind of period of pause was lockdown, like the rest of the world. I got a month at my brother's and waited there until it was safe, and then 3 months at my mom. And then when England opened up, I got to travel again. So that's how I went to Iona, which is where we last spoke. And I had 2 months there, and then I've just had 3 months in Edinburgh. So I've still had a semblance of movement, even though it's just been located kind of for the last 8 months here on one little island.
And that little island at the moment is getting smaller and smaller, thanks to BJ and
yes.
Let's see how quickly we can get back to tier 4. Nobody wants people from England at the moment. Europe doesn't want, Canada's locked down.
Yes.
The only ones, but you've got to love the Americans. Everywhere else is going, no Brits, and America going, it's too late. The new virus is here already. So let the people in. What the hell? We don't care anymore. But
I think some just have the ability to just, go with the swings and the roundabouts, bat the few out that we can. Just it's we are all in our own version of what that tough is. And we've got to know when to stand up and fight the fight, and know when to just knuckle down and close up for a while.
Yeah, this is exactly it. You know, I've gone back, not to quite the question that I asked you in the beginning, but I was just thinking about you and cats and how they find you. If you've ever been to Istanbul, you'll know that the center of Istanbul is peopled with cats, cats and dogs that are
Yes.
chipped and I almost said euthanized, chipped and sterilized by the city council and then just released back into the city. And they're looked after by the locals or the shop owners. And I remember
Yes.
walking through past a particular shop, and there was a kitten that was inside, and the mother had come out to talk to me, but the kitten was behind glass and it couldn't figure out where the door was. So it kept jumping into the glass to
Oh,
try and get
oh
to,
shame.
to its mom and
Oh,
aunt.
shame.
And eventually the mother sort of went back inside and go, let me show you how it's done. So
Oh,
that was one of the 10 lessons I think that kitten learned. Was going
well,
back
so I was just going to say, as you say, Istanbul. So now, of course, with the release of the book, so I went back to most, well, maybe I think 8 of them, because also people are at different places there. Some are in like family mode. But I went and asked for an update on how has this year, because I got all the interviews in by May. And so on my blog, I've got an update of how has this year impacted the people who are in the book, the idea of traveling, the idea of staying location free. Has it changed their mind? Has it made them more determined? So that was really interesting. But what I wanted to say is that Chris de Cap and his wife Gillian, they were in Morocco, and they have recently just gone to Istanbul, and they've just done a post, and there they are sitting in a park in Istanbul with cats on them, saying we've come to the local park to get some cat love.
Yeah,
So
you
because now
can't
we're all
hide from
connected
them.
on social media.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about the 10 lessons. What are they? And are they difficult? I love the fact that you mentioned if you're going in to stay in a place, find a coffee shop. We did that in Vietnam and we were only in Saigon for a few days. But we found a local coffee shop and you go there twice, 3 times a day, and they recognize you very quickly. It's that hello, how are you, and would you like your usual, type of thing.
Yes.
So it makes you feel welcome, and I think it also, in a way, makes the locals realize that you're not aloof and you want to be separate from, but you'd like to be part of the community, wherever that community may be, and whatever that community may consist of.
Yes, David, that's a vital part for me. And you'll read the other nomad stories, like being in the community and living like a local. We're not tourists. We're not there just we might be there for a short time, but our mindset is that we are living wherever we are. So we're much more kind of, I would say grounded. I mean, that's one way, but much more connected in. So how do we connect in? Some people very strategically pre-connect to people, or get connected via other people, but how do you plug in? I think I keep doing this with my hands. How do you plug in to the community as fast as possible? And then also the flip side of that is also staying connected to your loved ones and beloveds all around the world, for that sense of kind of stability, so you're not losing it. You're not just kind of wandering around the planet with nothing or no one. So that, we call them settling in tricks or hacks. How do you connect? And we all have our own, I call them rituals or zap of zen, or how do we do that for ourselves? And we all have our own little quirky ways that we do that. And so those are just the habits, I think, that we form. We all have habits in our life, and I think when we're on the road, for want of a better word, although we're not necessarily road tripping, we are on the road and have that nomadic life. It's what do we do to help center ourselves, connect in, feel stable, feel strong, know where to get the best cup of coffee that's just around the corner, because you would know that in your, for want of a better word, home. You would know that in your hood. So I think when I planned the book, I was just going, what are the things that have been important to me? And I know it's really awesome to always put it into chapters and lessons, because that's also how our brain likes to digest information. And so that was really what I did. I just thought, what did I know? What would I need to know? What might others need to know when they're starting out? And then, when I was interviewing people.
No, go ahead. When you were interviewing?
No, just it was interesting to see, do you have anything else to say? And then the idea of, if I was starting out, what would I tell myself? And that was so interesting, as like part of the lessons. It's like, just do it sooner already,
Yeah. Get it.
And I think this year, if anything, has taught people, do it sooner.
Yeah.
Nothing is promised, nothing is
No.
forever. Whatever your version of living, your version of location free, or whatever, 1 month away from your home while you Airbnb it, but you go live in another country,
Mm.
or just in another town next door
Yeah.
to you, just for a different perspective. So that's how I did the lessons. It was just what was important to me and what might other people want and love to know that would help them on their journey.
Because I always worry when people immigrate or
Mhm.
decide to go and live elsewhere. And I don't know for other communities, but specifically South Africans, they'll go to live in Melbourne, but there's one suburb in Melbourne that they live in because all the other South Africans live there. And then you go,
Yeah.
what's the point? You've
Yes.
moved from Sandton in South Africa to Sandton in Australia. You don't have any Australian friends. You've only got South African friends. So why did you bother to leave?
I 100% agree with you. And I've always been the person that tries to buck that system. So for
Yeah.
me, going to places about being with locals, eating where locals eat, making friends where you are. So I'm quite circumspect about expat communities. So I'll often use it as a way to just kind of dip in and
Mm.
connect, but not necessarily get locked in, because absolutely people then just go and recreate that mindset,
Yeah.
and as much as there is comfort in community, and there really is, I think it can also disconnect us from
Mm.
where we are. So it's also that, like, if you're going to a country, allow yourself to live there and be there and
Yeah.
connect in. So for me, it's always about a multitude of communities. You know what I mean? So I'll often connect with people much older than me and much younger than me. I always have.
Mm.
So different ages, different cultures, different interest groups. Follow your hobbies. But I think in any place to go and get locked into one community is quite dangerous and quite not dangerous. That's not the right
It's
word.
limiting.
Quite limiting. Yes,
Yeah.
limiting. It's quite. It puts our blinkers on of
It
like,
does
this is the
indeed.
only place I can connect, and I'm much more expansive. I
Yeah.
prefer lots of places and ways to dip into different groups, and I've always been like that, David.
Do you then do some research before you leave to wherever you're going so that you're aware of the culture that you're going to so that you're not disrespectful when you arrive? You don't arrive bold and brash and, wearing skin tight clothing and no underwear, and where you're going is the exact opposite. So people see you, they've already gone off you before you've even
Yes,
said hello.
yes, yes. So there's maybe two answers to that. So depending on the country that I'm going to, if it's something that I really don't know about, I might have to. So for example, a few years ago, I went and worked in Saudi Arabia. I know the Muslim culture pretty well. From my 20s, I've had Muslim clients. I understand the Islamic religion a little bit, I also had lots of Jewish friends growing up. So I have different ways that I understand people. But Saudi Arabia, and I'd been to Dubai many times and Abu
Mm.
Dhabi, but I was like, Saudi Arabia was another whole like kettle of fish. And I needed to do a lot of it was actually internal research. Like, what was it going to be like for me as a woman
Yeah.
going to Saudi Arabia and having to cover up? It was fascinating for me how I got to know myself also in that journey. So it depends on where I'm going. If it's when I say more similar to my own culture. So I won't actually. I prefer to show up and I do very
Mm.
little research. I prefer to show up knowing that the magic happens when you show up. And I show up open, vulnerable, honest, willing, and like to learn that way by being open,
Mm.
because I do think the flip side of too much research gives us too many preconceived ideas.
True enough.
So there are some people like in the book that say they go and find the Facebook groups that they're going to before and they go and connect in, and that's their way of doing it. I
Yeah.
don't. I like to show up. My first few days in the city, I prefer to walk without maps or Google Maps. I have it in case I get
Mm.
lost, and I prefer to just absorb and
I,
be
I
and show
love
up.
doing it. When I was running, I used the first thing I did when I got into the city was put on a pair of running shoes and you just go for a run. What's
Exactly.
the worst you can do is you can get lost. And
Exactly.
the weirdest thing for me, I got lost in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, which is a town that's about this size. It's supposedly where Jimmy Hoffa is buried down a mine shaft. I got lost in minus 23 degrees and my tongue froze. and I stopped off to ask directions. And I said
You
to
couldn't
them,
talk.
and I motioned for pen and paper, and I wrote down, I mean, this is America. We speak the same language or a similar one. And I wrote down, there's nothing wrong with me. My tongue is frozen. I'm lost. When my tongue is unfrozen, I will ask you for directions. Now, you would think she would have offered me a cup of tea or coffee to help me with a thaw. Nothing. And I sat there doing the me, like you do when you practice for theater or for a talk. And eventually my tongue loosened and I said to her, this is where I need to be. And she went, go down to the traffic light, turn left, first right, you're home.
Oh,
But I sat there for almost a half an hour waiting for my tongue to unfreeze.
oh my
Um,
goodness.
but I love doing that because, as I
Mm,
say, the worst that can happen is you get lost and then you
exactly.
ask for directions. Or I
Exactly.
will pick the tallest point so that I know if I turn around, I can see something behind me.
Yes. I also, again, I've always had this, I have a natural kind of instinct for
Hmm?
direction. So it's not often that I will get lost. I just seem to be able, I have like a bird. I don't know. I can kind of just always seem to find my way. But I also remember a really good friend of mine taught me, she'll do that in London, is she'll go out the hotel, turn left one day and just walk. And 8 hours later, wherever she is, she'll catch a cab and go back to wherever she's staying. And it doesn't matter. And sometimes she lands back at the hotel
Hmm?
and sometimes she lands up 20 kilometers away. But exactly, I mean, that's the joy for me. I have another client who says her ultimate goal is to get lost in a new city. That's her goal. She wants to get lost, and I love that.
Well,
So
or
yes,
it
if we come back, I think too much research can be
can ruin it.
useful,
Yeah.
but it can also ruin it. Yeah, it's like
But
I follow my heart when I
okay.
want to go somewhere. I'm
Yeah.
like, where am I going? My heart will take me there,
But
or
then you've
work.
also, yeah, one or the other. But then
Yes.
you've also got to know that if you go to New York and somebody says it's only 2 blocks from here, you have to ask them long blocks or short blocks, because otherwise
Yes.
you can walk for 8 hours and you've only gone 1 block. And New Yorkers are wonderful like that, because my second trip there, I did the same thing. I stopped to ask somebody for directions and they said 2 blocks. And I said, long or short? And he said, you've been here before, haven't you?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So, and the other question that I want to ask, because looking at the people that have joined you, whose journeys you have put into the book, they seem to be creatives of some sort. So my question is, could an accountant do this? Could somebody with an inverted commas regular job do this, or does it have to be
Oh, David,
somebody?
I'm gonna show you up now. Because Katja from
Yeah.
Scandinavia is an accountant, and that's her job.
Okay, fair enough.
So rap on the
Consider
knuckles for
myself,
David Verstappen.
consider myself, I skipped over that sentence.
Yeah, exactly. So that is, and she tells a story of how she actually went and thought about what is there something that she could do from anywhere. So I think that is also one of the insights or gifts that's come from this hideous, chaotic year of most of us who have some form of work have the possibility now of doing it more remotely because of what companies have had to do to
Yeah.
rejig their businesses this year. So a lot of that is now come to the fore of like, oh, it is possible if I'm in a regular kind of job. So I think for me, it's not so much the job, it's how we lock ourselves into the
Mm.
job that is more important. Scully is also, she's the CEO of a company and multi companies. There's an accountant. I'm looking here. There's a brand specialist. There's a coach. There's a traveling artist, the husband and wife, a web developer, an investor. There's like all sorts of people. So I think it's about the willingness more than, oh, it's creatives can do this, other people can't. No, you can do it if you've got animals, kids, work, your own job, investment. We're not retired. We are working. We all need to work, want to work, love to work. It's not about, oh, I can travel the world for a year because I've got my nest egg and I've just taken my
Yeah.
pension. It's not that. So I don't think it's about the creatives, and maybe that's part two, is maybe like over the next year, maybe that's people like interview, like people that are considered more corporate,
Mm.
in terms of how has remote working gifted them something different to do, because that's what I want to do, is do follow-ups and follow up with people and see how they're doing and is the lifestyle working for them.
Because I think that's important, but I think it all boils down to connectivity at the end of the day. So if wherever you're going, you've got high-speed Wi-Fi, for instance. You can work from there, but you can't sort of sit in the middle of Antarctica where there's nothing. That may be a little bit more difficult to find something to do there.
Sure, except that someone I met on Iona,
No.
no, listen to me. One winter, I was like, what? I was like, my master, she went and manned or womaned the post office in Antarctica one winter.
You're kidding.
And no, I kid you not, David. And I was like, you see, it's possible. Like, that's what she went and did. She was the librarian down there. I mean, that's what she went and did. So I think when we get locked into the idea of what is and what isn't possible, that's our mindset, which is why I start the book with mindset. Anything is possible. Okay, of course, given law and, COVID regulations, but I mean, outside of that, it's just how we dream up our life. I 150 million% believe that we are capable of doing that. But, to go back to our owner, that was one of the gifts of our owner when I wanted to take time off from work, was going somewhere where the connectivity was dodgy, because that's the inner work that I went to do, or that's where I'm going to take people to do retreat because it's offline. So it's also now for me when people fly, I hate that people can be connected when they fly, because there isn't that pocket of time anymore when people can say, I'm offline for 12 hours. And I think that's quite sad in a way. So I'm always interested in going offline so that I can come back online and connect. But it's as important for me to disconnect and go offline and shut the world out as much as it is being connected to high-speed Wi-Fi.
We don't give ourselves enough time to be disconnected, because the moment we say, all right, I'm not going to look at Facebook on my phone today, within 15 minutes, your hand's doing this because you're already reaching for the phone. I've taken Facebook off my phone just to give me that time away.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, there's a light version that you can sort of sneak back in via a back door and still look if you need to. Other tips and tricks, are there any that are so necessary that without them this won't work? Or is everything sort of down to, as you were saying, gut feel, and just read the book and see what works for you?
Well, of course, I'm going to say read the book and see what works for you, because it is about finding your way. But I think actually I did embrace the mindset first, but the rest were kind of, I say to people, dip in and out as to what's important for you. Because for someone, the whole thing that they can't get their head around is how am I going to travel with just a suitcase? Like, it might be the packing and the traveling. But I think one of the ones that for me feels very important and came up as quite vital was that looking after yourself. So I call it the lay principle. Because without that, if we do not have our health, our well-being, our vitality, our energy, the ability to know what we're doing when, the really taking care of ourselves, we're out the water before we're in it, So I think that is vital for me, that discipline of looking after oneself. And, I learned that when I traveled in Southeast Asia when I was 20, when I was traveling with, a bum bag or a fanny pack, as they call it, all my traveler's checks. And there was no phones then. And I was 3 months through Southeast Asia. And I knew that if I don't look after myself, I literally could die or be killed. Or, you don't just have a cell phone to dial 911 back in then, those times. So I think that for me is vital for all of us. And we've learned that this year is, it's not selfish. You have to take care of yourself and your mental and emotional stability and wherewithal, and listen to your gut, and be able to temper the head and the heart. I think if we don't have that, it's because it is stressful. It's not all glamour and gloss. Of course, it's fun and exciting, but it's also exhausting, and a lot of people suffer from burnout. I mean, the sheer energy it requires to travel, because you're not on holiday where everything is probably planned out for you. You're kind of, a lot of people are figuring out things as they're going. You've got to change direction and rebook an Airbnb because the one you're in sucks. And there's this constant kind of like flow around you. I think for me, that is really, really important, the looking after yourself.
It's as you say, it's not selfish, because if you're going to be on the move, the only thing or not the only thing, but two of the things I laughed at is one of your guests, can I call it, in your book, was talking about packing. And she could travel, like you were saying, with a fanny pack and nothing else. And Carol Lazar, who was the editor of the Saturday Star travel section, taught me how to pack. And I've still not got it right, because my goal is to get to less than 10 kgs in a suitcase when you're allowed 23. I've got to 12.
That's pretty good, David.
So, but I still want to get under 10. So there's that. And the other thing is medication.
Yes.
My wife is a doctor, and when she travels with medication, she travels like a pharmacy. If you think you're going to get it, she's got medication for it. And it's been useful to us on many occasions when we've been on group tours and somebody else has got ill and she's able to step up to the plate. But then again, you've also got to be aware that you need certification, or you need letters from doctors to say you can carry the medicine, or like happened to us in Vietnam, they're going to question you as to why you've got so many loose, because you mentioned it, I think, you take your meds out of the boxes because boxes take up space. And then you've got to please explain to some border guard who doesn't speak English why you've got X in your bag and so much of it.
So maybe I must put that in the next edition. Is one of the things you know, cut out the what it is and why you've got it. You know, but yes, that's the kind of legalities, and they're using your noggin, you know, your brain in terms of, okay, what do I need, and when I go to different countries. And you know, if you're on prescription drugs and maybe you say are going to Spain for 3 months, you need your 3-month supply, because what if you can't get the same thing there?
Exactly.
I did that homeopathically because that's how I treat myself. But I also realized that I needed more support with menopause and my depression and keeping my kind of myself stable. So I would then go to a homeopath in Joburg and get 3 months worth of stuff. But yes, I mean, that also makes for really interesting border control, you know. And it's actually over there. I could show you. I get cold sores, you know, herpes, cold sores, yes. And I've got a laser. It's like a little laser zapper, literally.
Right.
My sister-in-law found it for me. And I'll never forget, I was coming out of Romania working, and I was going to Greece for our writing retreat. And I had it in my hand luggage. And it's got the 9-volt, you know, the square battery. And it was in my hand luggage. I was hauled over. And I had to show them, because I had like a bit of a scar, and I had to show them what it was for. And they took the battery out. They put the battery on their mouth. I mean, I was kept there for 25 minutes. I almost lost my plane. And then I was like, okay, lesson learned. It goes in my luggage next time.
Yeah.
You know, so we also learn. We can't know everything before we go. We can learn. But yes, meds. I mean, I got caught out before without an asthma pump. And in certain countries, I'm not permanently asthmatic, but sudden changes of climate, more than animals or pollen, and I can just suddenly start throwing asthma attacks. And it happened in London. You know, in South Africa, you can walk into a pharmacy and get an asthma pump. You can go into Dischem and get an asthma pump. In London, you need a prescription.
Yep. And then you got to find a doctor, and it's expensive.
Well, I mean, I didn't have time. I was literally in you know, and it was really interesting for me. But we were staying in Marble Arch, which is a very Arab based area. And I was like, I'm going to go into a pharmacy and throw myself at someone's feet, because I was having a fit, because it was also 6 o'clock at night. Anyway, and I managed to get an asthma pump, you know, a little bit kind of under the counter, paying triple. But I learned, and I always have at least one asthma pump with me, because it's like I forget I have it because it's not constant. So it's like it just, you know, it just disappears from my brain. But, you know, I'm looking over there, and where my little zapper is, I can see an asthma pump. So yeah, meds are interesting, but we have to be clever. You know, we have to, what do I need to pre-think about? And what can I get as I go along? You know, so I don't need all my clothing. I might be able to buy another pair of shorts as I go along, you know. Or for me, I might be able to get nail polish and lipstick as I go along. I don't have to have it all up front.
And then somebody mentioned underwear. Somebody in the book mentions underwear, because I have not a fetish, but I wear one specific brand, and it's only available in Australia. So I make certain, depends, you know, I travel for a different reason. So my travels are not as long as yours. Maybe I'm in a place for 2 or 3 days before I have to move on. But then, given if it's overcast or inclement weather, am I going to be able to wash, hang up, and dry whatever it is I need, my underwear, or am I going to get on a plane or on a bus or a coach, sorry, not a bus, a coach with wearing wet underwear type of thing. So you've got to be cautious about that. But I suppose you've caught me up twice already. So I must be careful with this one. Maybe it's easier for guys, and I think you do mention it, when it comes to clothing, we can get away with literally one pair of shorts and 2 t-shirts. Because shorts you can wear forever. I know I do when I go into the bush. I'll wear one pair of shorts for a week. It doesn't make any difference unless I've spilt something on it. But women, I think it's a whole different kettle of fish. You know, you've got to take something for an occasion, perhaps, or, you know, as you mentioned, shorts, or maybe a dress, depending where you've gone to. So again, it becomes, what do I? Bless my wife, she's starting to learn. I've said to her, pack, then unpack, put it on the bed, in, half it again. You don't need to.
Oh, you're tougher than me. I just say take a third out, so you win the prize.
Yeah, but so, you know, the issue becomes when you travel a lot by car and you're doing road trips, and then you're not limited. You can.
Yes, you get lazy.
You know, it doesn't matter. Should I take 2 pairs? We'll leave one in the boot if necessary.
Exactly.
It becomes when you're on a coach tour, on a bus. Not the interesting thing for cruises, when we could still cruise, was that you can take unlimited on a cruise, but you're limited to 23 on the flight that gets you to the cruise. So
yes, exactly. Well, you're not unlimited. I mean, you can always pay through your teeth through it. But I was going to say that was actually one of the things, is one of the ladies in the book is obviously on the cruise ship. So that's really interesting. She's about to go back in 2 weeks, actually, from today. But yes, as women, to answer your question, is it's that capsule wardrobe idea. And I learned that when I started having to appear in front of people a lot more. So always looking glamorous, but traveling, but needing to be on stage or running a conference and needing to be, you know, polished and finessed and with makeup on and a pair of heels and look a little bit sassy, you know, and
heels,
you can't wear this.
About heels, they're the heels.
And she did them. They're actually my beautiful black heels with little studs on. She was so clever. I'm wearing heels right now, David, because I'm also, you know, I'm not one of those pajama Zoom. I've put on my heels and dress for you. But it's a capsule wardrobe, and it's, you know, there are people that's what their job is. So I learned from proper image consultants years and years ago when I was first dressed for a talk by Spa, and an image consultant put me in a dressing room and said, stay there and I'm bringing you clothes. And it forever changed how I viewed what I wore and what I could wear and how things could work together. Because I was a little bit of a tomboy actually growing up. And, you know, I'd learned less clothing from being at boarding school, and I was there for a whole term. But, you know, in terms of like clothing and it's having stuff that's functional and lasts well. So I also do this combination between quite not high end, I'm not talking like designer brand, but good quality stuff, and then a couple of kind of pieces that are more seasonal, but I try and really reduce those because that's just putting rubbish out into the planet, you know, when you're constantly going through clothing that's like synthetic and stuff. So I try and keep like an 80% good quality stuff that I wear for a couple of years. But because I also wear it often, I then literally wear it out. You know, it's not even fit to pass on to anybody else. But it's that capsule idea of having stuff that you love. And because you wear it more often, I have to love it nth degree. You know, I have to really go, this is the most delicious underwear or dress or shoes that when I see it, it makes me happy because I'm going to have to wear it often and functional. But it's like function and form mixed with a bit of funky fashion, you know, and that's, so I say get help. I mean, I have 2 people in my life that really know how to dress me properly and they help me. And when I go shopping in another country, I have them in my brain.
Well, now you can actually stand in the shop with your cell phone and go, is it A or B? You taken my head in one direction, and now, much like that second question that I asked you right at the beginning, I've forgotten where I was going. No, I haven't. I was going to just fool you and go, oh, that question was.
No, I remember it now.
What was it?
No, you go. I've got it lodged in my brain. You do this one.
I was going to say, how do you pack everything into 3 boxes? But and where are they stored? But there was something you were talking about clothing. No, it's gone. It's gone. So what was the second question?
Okay, we're going to blame the blue beard. Okay, the Smurf beard gets. Okay, so the very first question at the beginning was, is it actually possible to live and work anywhere? That was the second part of the question. Yeah. So I think we've spoken all through that.
We've gone around that up and down.
My answer is yes. I've been doing it for 5 years. So wait, now I'm going to show my brain's gone off. So we were talking about wardrobe. No, I've gone now. There was something else.
Doesn't matter. Where let's get on to the important stuff, which is, where can you buy this?
Oh man, I thought you were going to go back to the threesome idea, David. Come on, you're letting me down.
For people,
For those who
no,
didn't-
let me
for
stop
those
you
who
right.
didn't
Let
watch-
me
Yeah,
stop you
exactly.
right there, because for people who have
You
just
didn't watch.
they haven't watched that or this
know.
up until now are going, what are
What
you
the hell?
talking about?
Okay, let's put them out their misery. David interviewed me and my business partner, and we called ourselves the threesome, and it was such fun. Okay, so what's the important part?
Where is this available? Can people get it online? Will Uber Eats deliver it to us? Can they go into a bookstore and buy it? Because I know I've been watching online people that have interviewed you prior to me, people that have got the book already. I know some of them got it via takealot.com. So there are hardcover copies in South Africa.
Yes, and in England. So it isn't available in bookstores. So I've done it as online. Right. So in South Africa, if you want a paperback, you go to takealot.com and they will deliver to your door. For those around the world who want paperback, they obviously order it on Amazon. So you just go into your Amazon store and you do it that way. And there is obviously the digital version as well. So it's basically available around the world. But in South Africa, I had to do it slightly differently because it's quite expensive to deliver from Amazon to South Africa.
I don't think Amazon delivered to South Africa anymore because stuff was getting stolen on such a regular basis.
Yeah. So what's interesting, so this is just interesting for other listeners, is Takealot now has, for authors, it's actually pretty brand new, is that there is a print-on-demand facility now in South Africa, and working with Takealot as the preferred like arm of Ingram Spark. So Ingram Spark is like Lightning Source, which is Amazon's print-on-demand arm. So, if people don't know print-on-demand, it's fascinating. You order a book on Amazon and literally it goes, one copy gets printed and couriered to your door, which is what changed the face of printing like 10, 12 years ago, is print-on-demand.
I did not know about that at all.
Right, so that's often you see it as POD, print-on-demand. And that is what, we could have another whole hour's conversation, but that technology pivoted, transformed, actually is more the word, transformed the publishing industry for self-published authors. Because up until that point historically, is if you wanted to publish your own book, maybe you were a speaker or you had a business and you knew you could sell your own copies, or you quite like them sitting in your garage because that's what often happens to them, is that in order to get an okay price per book, the per unit price, the cost down, you would normally have to print at least 1,000 copies. And it's actually quite hard to sell 1,000 copies of a book. And people think it's easy, but no, that's why they sit in boxes. So when print on demand happened, it's a technology thing. So authors can now load books on Amazon. So print on demand, it means the printing cost. So you got your sale price. What the author gets is slightly lower because the print cost is higher. But it means there's no risk. So that was never available in South Africa until recently. So it's something we're telling all our authors about. So it's changed. So I was literally able to upload the Amazon files to print on demand in Cape Town. Takealot are linked with them. So when you order off Takealot, literally one copy gets printed and couriered. It's fantastic.
I'd wondered why this was so warm when it got delivered. It was fresh off the machine.
Your little copy, however, I did a very small print run for media, and one of the clients in the book is in Johannesburg and wanted 30 copies. So I did a minute print run. But because I'm in the UK, I didn't want to get caught up in selling my own copies. It's a lot slicker and neater for my reader as well to just be able to go on to Takealot and do a quick order.
Kate,
that's a whole different conversation.
It is indeed. But now for people who want to find out more about you and what you and maybe Sarah are going to be offering in 2021, or as I like to call it, 2020 2.0, how do they find you?
Right, so that's easy, David. Just on my website, which is my name, Kate-Emmerson.com, and everything kind of spirals out of there. The retreats that we're doing are on there. I have an online free course about how to disconnect. I have my retreats. People can sign up to the newsletter through that, Power of Disconnecting. There's links to my books. There's my blog. It's all there. Easy peasy.
And you're having Christmas with your family in England.
I'm with my mum at the moment, and it's her birthday on Christmas Day. So I've
Oh,
travelled.
wow.
I got through before Scotland and England closed
Yeah,
their borders because they're going to be patrolling.
Yeah.
I hired a car, so I isolated for a week before coming to my mum because
Right.
she lives in a retirement village. I hired a car, which they're doing very differently here. Literally click and collect. Someone meets you outside. You don't get into their offices.
Throws the
Very
keys
safe
at
and
you.
secure. Hey?
Throws the keys across the
Literally,
parking
yeah,
lot.
throws the keys, the tank's full of petrol. And
Off you
I
go.
drove to my mum, and they literally came and collected the car from my mum. So no interaction. It was just amazing and effortless. So I'm here. I was coming here for 3 to 4 weeks and then headed up to Edinburgh, possibly Dubai.
Mm.
But it looks like I'm headed nowhere, and I'm going to have a mini lockdown again with mum to see in the new year. So, that's what we're all doing.
Wonderful.
We're seeing what happens.
Well, happy birthday to your mum for Christmas Day. I hope you brought her a Christmas gift and a birthday gift, and not do what I would have done, is just go, hey, tough luck, your birthday's on Christmas. Here's a stocking, end of it. Deal with it. You're not getting anything more. And that you're going to have a great Christmas and New Year. Kate seems to have gotten locked on me, unfortunately. Kate, are you still with me, or is it just a happy smiling face that's now got itself frozen? The book, I'm hoping she'll come back to me. The book is called 10 Lessons for Living #Location.
Are you back?
I'm back.
What happened to us? Did we have a big pause?
I have no idea. I was just busy showing everybody the book when you paused. I'm hoping the recording is still going. Whoops, wrong side of the way. There we go, people. It's called 10 Lessons for Living #Location Free. It's by Kate Emmerson. It's on her imprint called Quick Shift Publishing. Stories that matter. Kara, listen to me. Kate, as I was saying when we froze, I wish your mum a very, very happy birthday. And I wish you and your family a wonderful Christmas. And hopefully we will reconnect in the new year, because I'm hoping that Sarah and I want to take her up on that offer when we were a threesome and look at a retreat in a bushveld location.
Oh, that would be so beautiful.
Yeah.
That would be really beautiful. Yeah.
Thanks
and
so
such
much.
a lovely way to, yeah. Thank you, David.
Thank you. And I wish you all the very best with the book and for the new year. This has been In Conversation With. I'm David Batsoff, and she's Kate Emmerson. Bye for now. Kate, thank you so much.
You're still recording.
I'm still recording. That's the beauty when you push leave instead of stop recording, which I'm going to do now.